Once again, we have another legacy sequel that no one asked for. I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's still called I Know What You Did Last Summer. But it's a legacy sequel to the movie that came out in the 1990s. And this one, too, follows a group of individuals who have seemingly committed a crime of some sort and gotten away with it only to be haunted by it a year later. That's pretty much the elevator pitch for this movie. Now, this is a terrible film. And it's a terrible film because it feels like it was made by people who did not watch the movie they were making a legacy sequel to. Now, I'm not standing here saying that I Know What You Did Last Summer from the 90s was the greatest movie ever made, but it was a pretty decent slasher thriller. I mean, it was no Scream. It was still by Kevin Williamson, but it was no Scream. But it was still pretty decent, and I think what made it stand out was the cast and potentially how self-aware it was of what it was. This movie, on the other hand, lacks any sort of self-awareness. But its biggest crime is that in 2025, you can't have characters doing stupid horror movie mistakes. It just doesn't work. And unless you have the characters in the movie be as smart as the audience who is watching the movie, people are going to lose interest and tune out very quickly and start nitpicking every single damn thing in this movie, which is what I was doing about 15 minutes into it.
Yeah, same.
Can we get the biggest error out of the way?
Go for it.
So in the original film, a bunch of kids, they run something over with their car. They think it's a deer. They're not sure. They get out to investigate. They find a Wellington boot. Deers obviously do not wear Wellington boots. And they realize they've hit something else. They encounter a body. And they dump the body. Promise not to talk about it. They've essentially committed a crime. And then one of them gets a note the following summer saying, I know what you did last summer. It was an interesting setup because your protagonists who are being hunted have done something wrong, which creates a fascinating moral conflict for you, the audience. I thought they were going to do the same thing here because it makes logical sense that you do. But as I'm watching this movie, the setup for the crime, in inverted commas, feels like a genuine accident. I'm watching it and I'm going, wait, why is this the setup? This doesn't feel like it's that bad. This feels like something if you went to the cops with, they'd be like, you know what? It was an accident. It wasn't really your fault.
Yeah. I will say the characters probably put themselves in harm's way to potentially cause said accident. But
Sure.
That's nothing a mid-priced lawyer can't get you out of.
You don't even need a mid-priced lawyer, man. One of the characters, his father in the movie, practically owns the entire town. I'm sure he's got high-priced lawyers.
That would have been easy to get out of, yeah.
So when the inciting incident itself is so flawed, I feel like the setup is completely wasted because I'm going through the rest of this movie going, wait. Nothing you did is bad enough to warrant this film. Nothing you did is bad enough to warrant 2 hours of this.
And I think that's the problem, right? Like, there's an overreaction to the inverted comma crime. Something happens to someone, and our protagonist's reaction to that seems completely overblown. My issue with it is that the writers were so afraid to make your lead characters be, inverted commas, bad, that they tried to soften the crime, and at which point it no longer becomes a crime. Now there's just an overreaction from everybody causing people to die and be murdered. And that just feels stupid.
I mean, there are other problems as well with the movie. I think the original movie did a very smart thing in leaving your protagonists as teenagers because teenagers behave stupidly and make irresponsible decisions. And in such a moment of fear, you can see a group of teenagers trying to dump a body and pretending it never happened.
Yeah.
In this movie, they age the characters up. And I feel when you age characters up, they can no longer behave like stupid teenagers because then it's a real problem.
Yeah.
That prevents your suspension of disbelief. Because you're sitting there going, why are you so stupid? I mean, there are plenty of moments in this movie in which the characters do things that make you go, why are you so stupid? I also find it impossible to believe that characters their age don't have their phones with them at all times. The problem with slasher movies and hauntings and thrillers in 2025 or in this 21st century is that you have to find a clever way to integrate 21st century things into it. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. And in this movie, cell phones appear when it's convenient, but then disappear when it's convenient for the plot as well, which really pulls you out of the fucking movie because you're like, at no point does the character go, oh, wait, I left my phone in the car. They just don't have their phones with them. I'm like, why? Where is your phone? Why can't you text for help or call for help? Oh, look, this sequence has a phone with low battery because it was convenient for the plot to show the low battery thing. Or when a character opens his phone to read a text message, it looks like he only has one text message in the fucking phone. It's those stupid details that they seem to have paid no attention to that really pulls you out of this goddamn film.
I also feel like the writers were very lazy. They were very lazy in thinking that just by giving this movie the same basic premise of a movie that was enjoyed in 1997 and then just writing around that same premise, to not update the technology, to not update the social norms. I think all that makes this a very lazy piece of work. And I think that's a problem. 5 minutes into this, I knew I was going to hate this the most because it really felt like a waste of time because nothing was special. There was nothing new to this. The characters still did stupid things. And a slasher movie in the 80s or in the late 70s splitting up because they want to cover more ground makes some sense. In 2025, when you know there's a guy coming after the five of you specifically, maybe don't leave one person in a fucking cemetery at night. That just seems dumb.
Also, can we please talk about that scene? Because in that sequence, two characters visit a cemetery. I'm not sure why. They're looking for a gravestone because that's supposed to be some great investigative method lah. But anyway, they're looking for a gravestone. They find a gravestone, and upon that gravestone are some freshly laid flowers. And so they ask the cemetery caretaker, hey, look at those cameras. Can you tell us who put down these flowers? And he says, sure, I'll go take a look. He obviously gets killed, spoilers, but when the camera goes back to our characters, it's nighttime. It was daytime when they fucking got there. Were they waiting there for hours for this guy to check CCTV footage? Like, it didn't even look like dusk. It just looked like daytime. And then suddenly it was pitch black nighttime. And that's not the only continuity error. There is another sequence where one of the characters is facing off with the fisherman killer and has the upper hand. And I'm pretty sure it's not an LPF thing. I don't think anything was cut because this is an 18 movie. All of the violence and gore was there. He has the upper hand. He knocks him out. He spits on him. And in the next sequence, he's running away. If you've knocked him out and spat on him, don't you take the knife and just stab the killer to death?
Sorry, Uma. He wasn't running away.
Oh,
he
sorry.
was crawling in utter pain.
Yes.
Which makes no sense. Also, can I just say, I have no sense of location of that house.
No. There is no sense of location.
Anything is.
There is no sense of time.
Yeah. It really feels like, with all these errors, it really feels like a B-grade slasher movie. Except there was no women in their underwear running around, which is what I expect from a B-grade slasher movie. There was none of that here, which is fine, but the storytelling, the story building, the narrative arc, even some of the production stuff feels really, really shoddy.
It was very shoddy. Yeah, the dialogue, the writing, all of it was so very bad. I mean, every piece of dialogue was exposition of some sort. They run into an old friend and they're literally standing maybe 15 feet away from each other. And of course, the expositionary dialogue goes, well, when her father ran away back in the day, we just kind of lost contact. And I'm like, wait, she's standing right there. Do you feel the need to explain this to the other three best friends that are standing with you?
Can I also just say that exchange was so awkward because the friend that they hadn't seen in a long time is across the driveway loading her car, and those two are talking. Our 4 group of heroes are here sitting talking as well across the driveway, looking at each other. I'm just like, this is so badly written. Other than the fact that it's fucking rude that you're just both staring at each other, talking about each other in front of each other. If it was a highway full of cars, that's one thing. If it was a river, one thing. It took so long for someone to just walk up and go, hey, how's it going? It's just like, Jesus, what are you guys doing? Do you have no social cues at fucking all?
But what was the point of this movie? Like, if you're going to reboot a legacy sequel, at least do something different or grow out the mythology. I mean, even the original I Know What You Did Last Summer, the whole idea of the fisherman hook killer type thing was rooted in some folklore, mythical tale type thing, right? And so they were doing something there to craft this mythology. And so flash forward, 30 years later, if you're going to do something like that, and you're saying, look, there was this series of murders in this small town from many, many years ago that was all hushed up, then grow out that mythology, do something with it. But they don't.
The problem is these writers want you to just think of that previous movie as the mythology. So they don't want to do any work, right? Anytime anything comes up about a previous murder, they all refer to the 1997 events. There's a crazy man walking around dressed like a fisherman, like in 1997. Oh, random people are being murdered around town, like in 1997. There's no other way for them. They don't even bother writing in their own mythology. They just keep pointing to that old thing that happened. And it's really pathetic, sad, lame.
They bring back Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. as legacy characters, but give them very, very little to do. Or even when they have to do something of consequence, it doesn't really make much sense with regards to the plot of everything that's going on, which is all we'll say, because if you watch it, you will understand what we're hinting at. There's also a completely unnecessary post-credit sequence. Like, this movie keeps going. Like, we were talking as the credits were rolling and we didn't know there was more, and then there's more, and we're like, why is there more? And there is apparently a post-credit sequence that's trying to set something up, but actually it makes no logical sense within the context of what you just spent an hour and 40 minutes watching. Like, I haven't seen a car crash like this in such a long time. It's hilarious. It's funny. Like, I didn't think studios still supported shit like this. It feels like they would at least try harder to make it coherent. Instead, all they did was find the most social media worthy, the hottest stars of the moment, and kind of threw them into a movie together, hoping that that was enough to bring in audiences. But I really don't think that's enough when a movie is this bad.
This really feels like the first true waste of time I've seen in a long time. None of this movie deserved to be. I know I can be quite colorful in my insults, but nothing here changed anything. This movie in itself is not a good movie, but if it at least expanded on the universe, like you said, if it tried to add to the mythology, if it tried to link better to the previous film, at least there was something. Here, it really feels like it was written by people who just knew the premise of the original. It's really strange that a movie like this can still get made and get released in 2025.
Yeah, so this one, of course, is a sequel to I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, because the direct-to-video sequel, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, is apparently non-canon.
Sure, as if this movie deserves the term canon anywhere.
Did you watch the Prime Video series, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Bahir?
No.
This was from like 3 years ago, I think, or 2021. There was an 8-episode Prime Video series, which was apparently a remake of the movie in the sense that it was based on the novel. Just like the movie was based on the 1973 novel, this was an adaptation of the novel in 8 episodes. I didn't see the series as well, so I don't know what that was like. But it was Sony, yet again, trying to milk this franchise for what it's worth, because whatever said and done, like Scream, it has name recognition because the title's incredibly catchy. And I think a lot of people know the name I Know What You Did Last Summer, and a lot of the time the studio feels like that's enough, or that's what they're trying to cash in on. And on that front, this is a complete and utter failure. It was just boring. I found myself laughing at moments when I shouldn't be laughing because I was just in complete shock over how bad some of the writing was and how pointless some of the plot twists were. The big reveal for me was completely pointless because early on, I forgot to mention, all legacy reboots at some point need to feature a fucking podcaster because that's just what you do these days, right? Fucking podcaster.
I really thought the podcast thing as a signifier of time was over. You know, like how when Only Murders did it, people thought it was cute. We thought it was cute.
It kind of worked even in that Halloween reboot, the first one. However, in this one, there is a pointless podcaster. The podcaster is one of the first few people to be killed by the fisherman killer. And there is a moment upon her death where she pulls off the mask and she goes, "You." At which point, I knew who the killer was going to be. Because she was a podcaster who was there to talk about the 1997 murders that took place on this Martha's Vineyard type place, right? And so when she goes, "You," it can only be one of two people because she doesn't know anyone else on the fucking island. And it just gives away the whole movie right there and then. So even the twist at the end is spoiled within the first 25, 30 minutes of the film. Like, if you've ever seen a movie before, you'd figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a pointless movie. It is not worth your time. We're not sure why it exists, except for the fact that studios keep trying to make these old franchises happen. Most of them end up failing, and this one ranks right up there with colossal failure. So, if you've got nothing else to do, go watch Superman again. Just skip I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's really just not worth your money or the 2 hours of time you're going to sink into it. If you do happen to catch it, though, let us know what you think. We're curious to know if this thing is enjoyable or entertaining in any way or form to anyone else out there. You know how to reach out. Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.